and to which we aspired. After a terrible civil war, followed by 4 decades of dictatorship, we had been separated, so we were not really celebrating accession, but rather a reunion with Europe. But on that day, that happy news shared the front pages with the terrible news of 2 attacks by the ETA terrorist gang that caused 4 deaths. This was the harsh reality of that time. I want to, here, in this house of all Europeans, to pay tribute to all victims of terrorism, hatred, and violence. From this tragic memory, and in order for it never to be repeated, we Europeans, our project of mutual understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no citizenship without full awareness that we inhabit the same political space and that anything that affects one part of that space or that area affects us all. Our strength resides in our unity. It is so important, particularly in these times, to remember that. Belonging to Europe was a decisive factor in Spain's transformation. Today we are one of the most robust and advanced democracies in the world. Our economy leads growth in the Eurozone. Our GDP per capita has doubled since accession. We're at the forefront of telecommunications. We generate over half of renewable energies in this area. All of this has been thanks, largely, to the modernization process that we have undergone in and with Europe. But this process has been reciprocal. Spain has also contributed to and led to building Europe in many areas. Here I think of citizenship in particular, cohesion policy, developing the social pillar, the area of freedom, justice and security, and the recent construction of pooled debt mechanisms, the southern neighbourhood, the Mediterranean neighbourhood, and alongside Portugal, our emphasis in the strategic relevance of Latin America and the Caribbean. This is Spain transformed by Europe and Spain transforming Europe. We must remain aware of what this means, aware of the responsibility we have to preserve these achievements, because the situation that Europe is undergoing means that we must all remain committed. We cannot take Europe, the European Union, for granted. We as Europeans are often quite critical of the performance of our community institutions. And in our days, it's not infrequent to hear comments about the weakness of Europe and its dated idealism, its disconnection from reality. The exercise of criticism, critiquing, is a sign of a democracy that works, and it is positive to the degree that it enables us to make progress. But there are some criticisms that undermine our principles and values. Without those principles and values, Europe would be a mere geographical term. And it is there in the oblivion and forgetting what building Europe means and has meant that the greatest threat to Europe resides. In these dark times, the idea, the notion of Europe has never been more necessary. Because the Europe that we want, the Europe for which we fight, represents a search for reason. And in this quest, we write our history. This Europe, in these agitated times, remains a benchmark in ethics, a political benchmark, a space of freedoms, social justice, where education and healthcare are rights, where we work for equality, cohesion and inclusion, where investment, innovation and job creation are protected and promoted, where citizens can travel, reside, study, work, trade, only limited by or hampered by whichever limits we set for ourselves, for our own goals, our own lives. and where our languages, cultures, traditions, and so many aspects of our identity are today better protected and preserved than ever. Let us ask ourselves what other regions in the world feel so deeply this notion of the common good, where it is as deeply rooted as here. And in the answering that, we will find the best defense of a united Europe. In foreign policy, this Europe that defends solutions based on rules and dialogue to settle conflicts and promote peace, stability and cooperation, where we cannot accept and much less support dated geopolitical notions as if they were signs of some new era. Ladies and gentlemen, these times remind us far too frequently that power without principles equates to barbarism, and that principles on their own without action to back them up lead to frustration and disillusionment. So let us continue to work on our defense, our strategic autonomy, in strengthening the European pillar within the Atlantic Alliance. We cannot postpone this. And at the same time, this is the best way to preserve a transatlantic bond based on respect and loyalty, one that has given us all so much. Without that connection, we'll be facing a world that is much more uncertain, much more unstable, and much more dangerous. Let us also be bold in our internal policies. Let us avoid excessive bureaucracy and too much red tape. Let us rise to the challenge of productivity, innovation, artificial intelligence. The pandemic proved to us what we can do when we work together, when we draw on the strengths of each and every member state. I said this a few months back at the end of your closing ceremony at the College of Europe. Let no one underestimate the capacity of Europeans to live up to and tackle their challenges. Today, 40 years after our accession to the European communities and at half a century since the beginning of our transition to democracy, Spain identifies fully with the project of building this magnificent space, a united Europe where freedom and social cohesion go hand in hand. Therefore, on behalf of all Spaniards, and thinking in particular of the youth, and in this house of all Europeans, I hope and urge all of us to continue to nourish and build this precious legacy. Thank you so much.